We got Talk About It Tuesday. A lot of things have been on all our heart, especially concerning Tuesday's election. And so we just want to kind of share our heart with you. Devin is going to share maybe some data, and Sister Angela is going to share. Um, let's just talk about it. And those of you that may be listening, I guess we can welcome folks. Please, we welcome your comments, right? And if you want to jump on and share things, I know everybody's heart is full, right? But I do want to say, be encouraged, right? Because we know the battle is not ours, it's the Lord's, and that we may have experienced this little minor defeat. Trust me, it's minor, but the war is still raging, right? We lost in the natural, but we are never losers in the spirit, right? We always win. So just be encouraged about that. So we're going to touch on some things that happened in the elections. I would Devin more preferably is going to touch on some things, and Angela and I will try to tackle the education issue and maybe some other things, and whatever else the Lord lead us to share from our hearts to you. So get a friend, join us. We're not going to be before you long, maybe about 30 minutes or so. We have to get back to the kids. We're just kind of taking a lunch break here. But again, I just want to encourage everybody that it's well, right? It's well. So we learned a lot. Well, I hope everybody learned a lot, because when things like this happens, it's a wake up call that we need to reposition ourselves, right? We need to recalibrate, reconsider some things, and it's a learning experience. It's not defeat. It's a learning experience, especially when your hope is in Christ. And the reason why we have to still keep going, we have to still fight, because there's a lot of things coming against our fundamental values, the core of who we are. The war is still raging against our children, our families, our financial stability, every industry, every area, every institution that we hold dear. The fight is still raging against those things. And so it is a war, right? It is a war. So we have to be encouraged about that. And as we all know, most know, this is a spiritual battle, right? And the seat that we all should be more focused on, if you will, is the seat where Satan sits, and that's in the hearts of men, right? So the Lord revealed to me weeks ago that the incumbent is Satan. So the office that we all should be fighting and running to unseat is in the hearts of men. We have to be encouraged. We have to really bring the message of faith, bring the message of conservative values to our communities, to our neighbors, and to our people. That's the only way we're going to see change. Change has to literally come from the bottom up. You know, sometimes we come top down, and sometimes those things have to work simultaneously. But more importantly, it has to come from us. It has to come from the people collectively. And so getting back to that old school, old-fashioned evangelism, old-fashioned grassroots initiatives is what we have to do, especially in the state of Illinois. And I think if we have not seen or witnessed anything else from this election is that we got to penetrate, right? We have to penetrate, and we have to have a strong message. And the message have to be the message of foundation, right? It has to be the message of family. Because when you build a house, you have to have a strong foundation. So all the other industry, taxation, crime, and education, and all those things go up in there. But we have to build a foundation on family. People like to lukewarm family, lightly esteem family. They think everything else is important. But when you think about it, and you look at how everything that is happening, when you look at the encompassing of everything, the enemy is doing everything that he's doing to destroy family. Everything that is happening, the goal is to destroy family. The goal is to destroy the image of Christ, the likeness of who we are in Christ. And so we just need to be encouraged by that and keep fighting, right? Keep fighting. We're going to be fighting until he part that sky. So don't give up now. It's not time to lose wind, right? It's not time to lose wind. So we have to be encouraged concerning that. And as the word of God say, we have to love God with all our heart, mind, body, soul, and spirit, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And so I think once we all kind of really get that in the core of our being, we'll see more things happening within our communities, within our city, and within our state. So Illinois, be encouraged. It is well. We don't live for an election cycle. We should be living for life cycles, right? This thing's going to keep going. This 4 years is going to pass by before we know it. And so we should have our ground game ready, right? We should be getting ready now. Not murmuring, not complaining, but getting ready, getting boots on the ground, and advancing the principles, advancing these God-given principles that we all hold dear. We have to get out here in the streets and we have to tell our neighbors, because guess what? These people don't elect themselves. We collectively have a responsibility, and we vote, right? We take full responsibility that we vote. So our neighbors are voting for these people. So we need to talk to our neighbors, right? We need to inform and educate people on what is happening and what these policies are, where these people stand, what their beliefs are, what their values are, what the ideals are for our families. And we don't have to agree, but we need to stand firm on what we believe, because they have their belief system and we have ours. So we're not going to tuck our tail and hide our belief system, because they're definitely not hiding theirs. And so we have to be just as bold, just as courageous. We have to be fearless in the face of this, right? In the face of this persecution. We have to be strong. We have to wax bold. Therefore, we have to be louder, right? We have to be louder. So I'm going to give Devin the floor. He's going to share with you all his synopsis and some data of what he believed happened during this election cycle, and prayerfully what we all can do to be boots on the ground, to have all hands on deck, so that we can not just be prepared for the next election cycle, but just to take it all back. We need to be really rescuing our children, our family, and our state from these liberal progressive policies. Devin?
Well, we lost. So that's the I really think nationwide, we didn't, I should say, conservatives didn't do as well as conservatives thought they were going to do nationwide. And that tells me, some people will say that it's election fraud or election irregularities or something like that. And so I have two thoughts on that. I'm of the belief that we did not penetrate communities, and that's based off of what I saw right here in Chicago and in the suburbs, um, and just in talking to family and friends nationwide, people that I'm friends with in the military, we they might have seen me say stuff, but there was really no penetration of uh, outside of our echo chambers, if you will, right? And so one of the things I'm noticing with conservatives, and this is not to be negative, it's just I want us to be mindful of what we're doing, is that we think because we're excited about something that other people are also excited about it. We think our rallies, oh, it's 10,000 people at a rally, or we went to this thing, so that translates into everybody knows about that, and that is just not the case. Um, when I look at this election, um, many of our candidates here in Illinois, people didn't even know their names. They legitimately didn't know. Um, so the plus side was that we did have an unprecedented number of candidates in in Illinois on the Republican side, that and on the Libertarian side, that had never happened before, hasn't happened in decades and decades, definitely not in my lifetime. But we didn't take into account candidate quality, we didn't take into account messaging, and we didn't take into account who we hired to do outreach. And so you can go to other people to get all of those words on who was actually hired to do outreach, because it's a mess. It was a mess. But on the other side, if it was election fraud, that means that we spent 2 years doing nothing about election fraud, and that's terrible. So either way, either which way you want to spin it, it means that those of us who knew better did not do better, right? And so that's a hard pill to swallow, but that means that we have to be more strategic about what we're doing. Um, the fact that the Republican running for governor only won 1 out of 50 wards in Chicago, that means that we rolled back the gains that Donald Trump gave in 2020 and 2016. The entire Chicagoland area went blue. It went to Democrats. Uh, Something's wrong with that. Something is definitely wrong with that. Nationwide, it was supposed to be this red wave, and it wasn't. It was like a red puddle or something. And so I believe that a lot of that is due to the fact that we have not been actually talking to people, and we've been talking at them. And that is not how you win elections. That's also not even how you evangelize. I mean, for real. When you are taking the message of Christ, you don't just take the Bible and throw it at somebody's head. You actually have a conversation with them. You see, you have a conversation about how the gospel affects their life or where their life fits into that. And I think as conservatives, we have not done that type of outreach. Um, I'll just say for me on the South Side, the outreach was very like stereotypical, right? We talked a lot about crime, but we didn't talk about economic opportunity. We didn't talk about first time home buying support, second time home buying support. We didn't talk about generational wealth. We didn't talk about expungement for people who actually have been adversely affected by a Democrat run criminal justice system. When we talked about, we just said there was no institutional racism, there was no systemic racism. Okay, so then the Democrats are great. If these things don't actually exist, then the Democrats are doing pretty good. So what we didn't do was we did not speak to what people were actually going through, and we didn't put policy ideas to those things. We went with what we wanted people to be affected by. We wanted people to care more about crime. Well, if crime has been in your neighborhood for 40 years, it's going to be there. So your goal is economic opportunity to rise above the crime. Your goal is educational opportunity for your children so that they will not be subjected to criminal activity to make ends meet. So, we just didn't talk about that. We talked about masks over molestation of children in the public school system. And so, I don't have to go through all the numbers because you can go to the Board of Elections and the clerk's office and the state Board of Elections, and all the news outlets will give you the numbers. But 16% in the city of Chicago is not acceptable. And anybody that tells you that that's okay, that we as Republicans did our job, I'm telling you, they are lying to you. That's not okay to have only gotten 16%. We did not do a good job collectively. I'm not blaming one person. I'm blaming all of us together. We did terrible. We didn't penetrate communities. We didn't talk to people. We talked at people. And so, as someone said, Republicans missed a huge opportunity in the governor's race. Absolutely. We missed a huge opportunity to really highlight Tom DeVore over what's his name? Kwame. Look, I can't even remember his name. Kwame Raoul. That's where you could have put the election integrity issues. Is there? We didn't have poll watch. Once again, here we are, a dire need of Republican election judges that came out from the Chicago Board of Elections, and a dire need for poll watchers. If we believe that elections are fraudulent and that they're stealing elections, how did we not? I mean, people should have been flooding the polls. And so there's no sacrifice. You see what I'm saying? There's no sacrifice on the conservative side of the aisle a lot of times. People wouldn't do work without money. Um, Kathy just said it right there. Candidates have same people over and over at a gathering. All these people who just like to hobnob with like-minded people need to branch out and talk to strangers, knock on doors, have events for open discussion with people of opposing views, etc. Same circle, you got those same circle votes. We needed outside votes. get get outside of your circle. That's it right there. I mean, that's the whole election. And I think the three of us here, that's what we were sounding the alarm to. I'll just speak for myself. Oftentimes, I'm looked at as like this negative person, or like I don't want to be a team player on the Republican side. But when I walk outside my door, if I'm the only Republican that these people can name, that's a problem to me. If I go to polling places and I'm going to polling places outside of my ward and there's nobody there, I'm going to polling places where there are committeemen and they haven't visited. That's a problem to me. If we really believe that there's election fraud, you know what I'm saying? When there was a problem in 1765, they began the beginnings of a real revolution, right? When there's a problem, you think of it like this: if you have roaches in your house, you don't go, "Oh God, it's just a lot of roaches in this house." Oh well, you get something, you get a bottle of something, and you spray it all over the place, or you get the slapping the roaches down. You don't just sit there and say, "I'm not saying Democrats are roaches." I'm just saying, to use that analogy, if there's an infestation of something, there's an infestation of bad policy in this country, not just in Illinois. It doesn't matter where you go, there's an infestation of bad policy, and we're going on social media. That makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know how to dress that up and make that a positive thing, because if we really believe that second graders are being taught that they should masturbate, something there should be like an uprising, right? I mean, am I wrong in it? It should be like, oh my gosh, if we really believe that every time we go on that electronic voting machine and we press A, somewhere in the back room it gets switched to B, why are we not there? We should have too many poll watchers. Like, we should have, because I think they give you one per party and two per candidate. Me and you, Latasha, shouldn't have been the only people in that polling place in the 18th ward, right? We should have came in,
Or the
and they
21st ward.
or the 21st ward. We should have came in and they should already said, well, we got two from Darren Bailey, two from Tom DeVore, two from such and such. We don't have enough space for you, Devin. Sorry. Or which one of y'all can leave so that the committeeman can come in. There should be an uprising. When Jim Crow was real bad, when it got real bad under Jim Crow in the 50s and the 60s, there was an uprising. And people were willing to sacrifice and even before that, people just didn't see it, because guess what? There was no TV prior to that. Black people were uprising in the 30s. They were uprising in the 20s. There was an uprising because it was so terrible. So if all these things are so terrible, then rallies is not an uprising. Paying $150 ticket to that's not a that's not an uprising. You know, people in the 60s, people stood in line and had dogs and water hoses sprayed on them for the right to vote. That's an uprising. They got on the bus, sat in the back, and they were ripped off by cops, right? That's what I would expect to see. I expect to see us. I'm sorry, I just expect to see us putting our lives on the line for this stuff, if it's for real. So I can't go with the election fraud thing, because we don't have enough poll watchers and election judges to prove that. Maybe somebody else has some data that I don't have. I don't get into that. I just know we lost, and I'm not surprised, because about 16% of my family actually voted for Republicans. So in my mind, yeah, 16% of Chicago. About 16%. If I got 100 friends, 16 of them actually paid attention to Republicans or heard something from them. So I'm not surprised. I knew that socialists were taking over the north side of Chicago. I mean, I've been saying this as long as you've known me, Latasha and Angela. Haven't I been saying socialists are taking over the north side of Chicago? We went to a meeting just a week before the election, right? Or the Sunday before the election. And they were talking about how the Democrats didn't have signs, right? And how we were going to do so well because the Democrats, they're not even campaigning. They don't have to campaign. The Democrats do not have to brand anything. They don't have to campaign. They've done it for 60 years. It's like McDonald's. You know the arches when you see them. So that's where we're at. We need signs and we need material. They don't because they live in the community. Justin Slaughter's office is right up the street from you, right, Latasha? He right there. So across the street from Justin Slaughter's office is a school. How much you want to bet he does stuff at that school all the time? How much you want to bet? In his office, he has other community leaders that he allows them to have office space. Isn't that correct? So he is in the community. He's our neighbor. He's our friend. That's our boy. That's Jay. That ain't Justin Slaughter, representative. That's Jay or whatever they call. I don't know what his nickname is. You see what I'm saying? So we have to start listening. You know, people are. It's exhausting to be. You know, I'm not trying to slap the Bible on everything I say, but for us to be these voices, so-called crying out in the wilderness, man, I'm tired of that. This is easy. It's so easy to walk up and down the street and talk to these people and ask them what their issue is and to provide a conservative solution. What is your problem? Back in the day, I made a mistake, or I might not. I'm gonna use the barbershop, the person we met at the barbershop. The guy didn't make a mistake because he was charged and the charges were dismissed. Yeah, he's been punished for pretty much all of my life for something that he legally never did, right? He just been looking for expungement. He done gone to all these different people, paid all this different money. Nobody can help him. Well, don't we have Republican lawyers that can help him? Don't we have Republican lawyers that can help these people when they get red light ticket cameras, when they get speed cameras? If we believe that they're fraudulent, where's the Republican lawyers to help? If we believe that the school system is messed up, where are we at in pooling all of our resources to fund community schools, real community schools? Where are we at in highlighting things like the chess co-op? Where are we at in that? You see what I'm saying? Where are we at in see you said life cycle. I've been saying life cycle for a long time. Democrats operate in a life cycle. We operate in an election cycle. Nobody lives their life based on when the midterms and the presidential. I mean, I don't at least. I ain't never lived my life like that. Whether it's the president or not, you live your life based on benchmarks in your life. I graduated high school. I'm going to college. Whether that coincides with an election is irrelevant to me, right? And so, where are we at in being neighbors and journeying with people in their life cycles to then effectuate policy? When we do take power as Republicans, it's the I'm not going to call them rhinos. I'm going to call them moderates, if that's what you want to call them. Those are the people who we give all the power to. We had an election where almost all the committeemen were reelected or their chosen successor. Didn't we just have we had a primary, every place except for Chicago elected committeemen. Who did you elect? Do you know who your committeeman is? So, I don't know. I'm hopeful because I think with the stuff that we put out, we can get people to live their lives differently. And we got committeeman elections coming up in Chicago in 2024. So are we going to let the establishment choose our candidates for us, or are we going to pay attention to who we're electing as committeemen? Because that's the building blocks of the party. That's the building blocks of candidate choice. Are we just going to go with candidates because they speak to our one little thing. You know, for 2 years, Republicans was just talking about masks and riots. If it wasn't the masks, it was the riots, right? I just didn't hear a lot of people in Chicago concerned about the riots. Did you? Did any of y'all hear anybody who cared about I mean, I didn't. So to me, I'm not gonna vote for somebody to be the candidate just because they talked about a riot, or just because they put up Black Lives Matters versus White Lives Matters versus these weird. Get off of Twitter. That's my point. Get off of Twitter. Get off of Facebook. Stop doing the Instagram thing, or stay on there to push a message. But that is not the reality of the world. Stop watching the news to find out what Black people think. Because guess what? The news can't tell you what Black people think. The only people that can tell you what Black people or anybody else think are those people. So you got to knock, knock, knock on the door to meet those people. Yes, Black people do not have the energy to constantly fight both sides, which is why I'm not fighting both sides. I can't. We do need our own apparatus. I will never say that Black people should be doing anything Democrat oriented. I think that is a terrible party. I think while they may control the reins of government and our the government treasury, they have been destroying us since their foundation. So we need our own Republican or Libertarian or anything outside of liberalism. We need our own stuff. And that goes for everybody. It's not just Black people. That's a universal principle. We need to be defeating these Democrats, and we need to be defeating their moderate friends on the Republican side of the aisle. Because that's what they are. They're friends to these people. I don't know if that's what you wanted me to say, but that's that's what I got.
No, that's good, and absolutely, that's good. And I agree with a lot of these comments that are coming through. I appreciate everybody that is joining in and commenting and talking about it Tuesday. You know, we need to have these conversations. We need to have these dialogues because that's the only way we're going to effectively make change. Um, so James Taylor, let me see what James is saying. Ryan Levin, what I post is not defending the Bailey position, but rather deals with the money laundering of campaign funds. As of yet, we have not questioned Baylor's campaign about the knowledge of this. Yeah, I wouldn't have any knowledge of that either. But thank you, James, for that comment. But as I stated when we got on in the beginning, for me, the most important thing is how we're seeing the destruction of family. So all these things that Evan just shared and you all are sharing via the chat is all to destroy the family. And again, we've all sat back in these last 2 years. And I think a lot of things, especially COVID-19, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on and believing whatever you believe, it exposed a lot of things. It exposed a lot of the precepts and the conditions of our heart in terms of what matters. But the mask was not the biggest issue for me because most of us knew and understood eventually we're going to put the mask in the trash can, right? The biggest problem was the actual molestation of our children's mouth. You know, we can come back from masks, but you cannot come back if a child has been molested or their minds have been exposed. This level of perversion that if you will, we have sat back and allowed to literally infiltrate our school system is unconscionable. It is heartbreaking. And I think that's what we should be very loud about. We need to be fighting for these children. And many are. I'm not discrediting any battles that are happening, but more should be fighting for our children. When we're out in the community, somebody made a comment that they remember seeing people out in the community. Yes, Devin and I and Angela, we are always in the community. We were out yesterday. A lot of the times we don't get to post pictures and things. Sometimes we we'd be so engaged, if you will, with the people that we're speaking to. We don't have time for photo ops. But just know this, we are
I want to
talking,
speak to this comment too when you get done,
yeah,
Latasha.
we are out talking to our neighbors, but for the most part, in terms of us that you see here today, we have a lot of support, and we thank God that we do. But we're physically out there, and there's only so much we can do with the tools and the resources that we have. We have been asking for help. Just along the Facebook post will show that we need more volunteers. I always post that we need volunteers. I always post, I want to say scratching, that we need help. And even when the sex ed became more obvious in early 2020 and even in 2019 when the LGBT history passed and then comprehensive sex ed passed, I was posting all the time, within my sphere of influence, within the resource and tool that God had given me, that we needed volunteers, to come out in the street and pass out a flyer, just pass out the opt-out form so these parents can be aware of what is happening to their children. We never got anybody to help us from the Republican Party. That's heartbreaking. Because the thing is, when we sit on social media, even now, the people that even need to hear this message now, they're not our friends on social media. And I can assure you, me and Angela and Devin, we have talked to hundreds and thousands of people, but it's not transcending into our social media accounts. So we have to constantly go out and constantly knock on doors and talk to these people. We even gave out thousands on top of thousands of comprehensive sex ed flyers and opt-out forms. I'm telling you. And thank God I'm a homeschool mom, and I'll just be transparent. I get a great deal on flyers. I can make flyers for 4 cents because I get a discount with homeschool legal defense. And if there are any homeschool parents that are listening, they can verify that. So we make thousands of flyers and we give them out, but we have no support from the Republican Party. Now, individual Republicans, yes, of course, but no one comes out to help us, right? But it's okay. We're going to keep going, right? We're not downtrodden because of that. But just know that you got to get out here into the community. So, and I've said before, you can't say, oh, the Black people just vote Democrat, oh, they this, they that, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, you don't bring a message to them. Listen, if you're a Republican or conservative, and even if you're not, if you're claiming you're a Christian, I'm going biblical Christian of the faith. This is how our faith works, as many know. Our faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. You have to bring an alternative message. And because our communities all over the country have been inundated for so long and indoctrinated for so long, it's going to take some work to get them to they hold the values in their heart, but just to press that button in the ballot for it, right? Because all they're inundated with and indoctrinated with is that the Republican Party is racist. When I ran with Max Solomon for governor and as lieutenant governor, it was so hard. And Anthony Devin is right here, they can tell you. In Medicaid, it was so hard to tell people who was running on the Republican side. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Because we would have their hearts and minds. We would be having great conversations. I mean, we were connecting. But as soon as I said, if they get excited, oh, Miss Fields, Tasha, et cetera, Max, as soon as they get excited, and I say, you got to vote Republican. It's like everything that was said fell to the ground. That was heartbreaking. Very, very heartbreaking. And so that's what we have to do. We have to combat that narrative. And it's not that racism does not exist. It exists on both sides of the aisle. But the Republicans need to counteract that argument. Stop allowing the Democrats to bully you in a corner and create your narrative and create your message. You have to fight back against that. You can't be reactive. You have to be proactive. You have to get out in the community and show these people who you are. What leaves the heart reaches the heart. So it's a trust thing. When I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to all the Democratic leaders that they know, they have grown up with these people. These are people from the community. They know them. They trust them. There's a loyalty there. Whether we like it or not, it's there. They're in the community, right? right? And even though the policies are very egregious, there's a lot of fun and activities and things that they do to reach out, you know. So it's just a lot going on. And the Republican Party as a whole is not very charitable to the least of them. And that's what I'm learning, and that's what I'm seeing. So, you know, we really have to do better from that regard and stop operating in the spirit of fear. You can't govern what you fear. I've said that before. You cannot govern if you're afraid. And especially if you're claiming to be a believer, God is not giving you the spirit of fear, but you're supposed to be coming out here talking to your neighbor with love, power, and a sound mind. Because the last time I checked, nobody's killing white people. If anybody should be afraid to go out into the community, it should be us, right? There's a lot of black on black crime. And so I encourage our sisters and brothers in Christ, stop this labeling and name calling. Yes, there are a lot of bad things that are happening, but we supposed to be above that. We supposed to be able to rise above that, right? And bring hope, right? Hope that doesn't disappoint. So, you know, we're going to wrap this thing up. There's so much that could be said and done, was said rather. Um, and Devin
I,
wants to comment on this before we wrap it up. But
yeah. Go ahead.
now, so just be encouraged and know that if nothing else that you could take away from this, we have to start organizing ourselves and mobilizing ourselves to come together, right, and advance these principles, get out into this community and present our message. We can't present it 2, 3 months before the election. We can't just prop up signs a few weeks before the election, right? We have to till the ground, right? We got to plant the seed. And then once it's planted, we got to water it, right? We got to cultivate it. That's going to take years, right? That's going to take years.
Um, the comment, I think the Democrats are buying the votes. They are not buying the votes in the sense that they pay cash for votes. I mean, first of all, there weren't like voter turnout was poor, very poor in the last governor's race in Chicago. 800 over 888,000 people voted. In this one, it was just over 650,000. So the turnout was down. There were 50,000 fewer, roughly 50,000 fewer Republican actual people casting ballots as Republican or for the Republican Party in um in Chicago than the last time we had a governor's race. So that means that, and it was on both sides. So that means that both sides voter turnout was down. We literally kept the same percentage as we did when Rauner last ran to now. So that means voter turnout was down, and we didn't do the actual work because again, we think in election cycles and not in life cycles. So if we believe this stuff, we have to consistently be having these conversations, evangelizing, having meetings, inviting our neighbors and our friends, people that we don't know, not going to rallies, not having summits, not having that's great to energize ourselves, but that is like 90% of the Republican outreach in this state is speaking to the choir, and that's problematic. Somebody did ask how can the downstater support. Team Illinois accepts donations, physical money donations. www.teamil.org. The Southside Republicans also accepts donations, and our mission is to fill up all of these South and West Side committeeman spots with authentic conservatives. You can find us at southsidegop.org, southsidegop.com. It Either of those will go to the same website where you donate, Southside GOP. That's also all our social media. So uh, the the other thing is there was some mention in there about political PACs and stuff like that. You know, I agree that people should hunt down where the money went, what happened, figure out. You know, the Cook County GOP got $200,000. What was that money used for? I don't know. That's for you guys to hunt that information down and hold people accountable where you feel they should be held accountable. But as far as the real grassroots outreach, it wasn't there. And when it did appear, early voting had already started. So listen to what I'm saying. It wasn't there until early voting started. That's already too late. Um, no, June says there was a guy that came out on Facebook saying that a lot of pastors in Chicago were giving donations to push their parishioners to vote Democrat. Surprise everybody, nobody goes to church. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. There's a couple of people who still go to all these 501c3 churches, but ain't nobody listening to I mean, for real, nobody. Voters are not listening to a please, please, please believe that what you're saying is black people. I know, because I know we're not talking about white people listening to pastors to vote. Black people are not listening to pastors on who to vote for. I'm telling you that based on walking out through these communities. Black people, and to make it more general, Hispanic people in Chicago, white people in Chicago, Asian people in Chicago, 9 out of 10 times are not listening to a pastor on who to vote for. I'm telling you that right now. I've been black for 36 years, going on 37 years. I have never gone to a black church. The church I was baptized out of was white. When I when I became Catholic, white. We ain't listening to churches. We are not listening to churches. Kenneth is correct. We need workers in the Republican Party to knock doors today, right now, not when the election comes up for the city of Chicago on February 28th. On February 29th, we need Republicans knocking on doors. On March 30th of next year, we need Republicans knocking on doors. June 15th of next year, Republicans knocking on doors. We need people registering voters at Lollapalooza. We need people marching in the parade, and then people on the sidelines handing out information. We need consistent meetings, expungement seminar. I'm giving away the whole playbook, and I'm not going to do that on this. I'm going to let you wrap it up. But the Democrats laid out how to win a vote, how to win the vote. They have laid it out. I don't know what we're looking at. It becomes very frustrating to me because it's like, why would you not take the playbook that the enemy, they gave you their playbook, so take it and win. This is not a Democrat versus Republican struggle. This is a good versus evil struggle. So get Republican out and Democrat out and Libertarian out of your head. This is about policies that are death, poverty, and destruction. This is about policies that rip babies apart. This is about policies that molest children. This is about policies that take all of your wealth. This is about poverty that policies that strip you of any dominion you have over your household, whether it's the Second Amendment to guiding and leading your children, to proper marriage, to whatever the case it is. This is about policies that make you less human and take away your God-given dignity. So forget this little thing behind me with the Southside Republicans. Let's stop talking about what the Democrats and Republicans are doing. There's evil politicians who push bad policies, and their friends that sit in high levels in another part on the other side of the aisle and just agree with it. They just don't tell you that they agree with it. Push these people out, or you're going to lose your republic. That's it. The playbook is there. Use their playbook against them. That's it. Stop stereotyping people. Stop calling stuff a hellhole. Stop labeling things. Stop talking about Black Lives Matters, because nobody cares about black. Literally, nobody cares about Black Lives Matters. It's not a thing. You wear a shirt that say White Lives Matter, it just makes you look stupid. I'm sorry to tell you that. It made y'all look stupid. It made me look stupid, and I didn't even do it, but because it's a guilt by association. So stop listening on social media and start listening to the person that lives across the street from you. That's what I would end on. I tried to be as positive as possible, okay? But I'm tired of it, okay? I'm tired of this Democrat versus Republican thing because people are dying. We know the Democrats are evil. They're going to be evil because they started out evil. The party is bad. We know that. Everybody knows that. So what are you going to do about it? Is the next question. When are you going to stop waiting until election time to be a candidate and be a neighbor every single day? When are you going to pull your kids out of public and public charter schools where they're molesting your child's mind? When are you going to vote out the bad committeeman? Because it happens every 2 years. 4 years in Cook County and in the suburbs is staggered. So like in 2024, all the city committeemen will be up. In 2026, all the suburban committeemen will be up. What leadership changed? None. The Democrats got the same committeemen they didn't have for the past however many years since I was a kid. The Republicans got the same. It's the same people. It's the same people. I'm 36 years old, and the same people that's been in power just about my whole adult life on both sides of the aisle. I'm tired of that. I'm not gonna do this for another 18 years. I've been able to vote for I think 18 years roughly. I'm not doing this for another 18 years. So what are y'all gonna do about it? Because I'm doing my part, we doing our part. What are you guys going to do? I'm
Can I
not.
just
I ain't. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to piggyback off of what both you guys have been saying for this whole time. Um, we didn't get to this place overnight. Illinois didn't get to where it is overnight. This democratic machine has been in place for a really, really long time, right? So the bottom line is we cannot be afraid to do the hard work. We have to get out there and chip away at these things that have been done. And you can't try to circumvent the people by saying, well, I'm going to go to this leader over here or this leader over here. And if I talk to them, then they'll talk to their people. It's time out for that. That doesn't work anymore. Devin said that. Stop trying to go to the church leaders. You have to go straight to the people. And that's what we've been trying to do. Devin, Latasha, and I, we've been trying to go straight to the people. That is where the power is. Because we know our politicians are making deals in high places that are not for us. I think someone just said 95% of politicians are not for it. No, they're not. That is why the power has to go back to the people. That is why we have to get out and do the hard work and start talking to people one at a time. And it may feel overwhelming, but that is what we're called to do. And that's the only way we're going to turn it around is to give the power back to the people. People don't know they're at war, but there's a spiritual war going on and people don't even know it. And we are called to bring attention to that. So please, Republicans, Democrats, mainly Republicans, I know everybody is really sad. They're really shocked about what happened. But why are we sad and shocked? Why are we so disconnected that we don't see? Why are we so out of touch with the people that we're sitting back saying, oh, they stole the election? No, the people, you never read the people. We have to have faith over fear. We have to get out here and we have to start. If you want to reach the Black community, you got to walk up and down the streets and talk to the Black community. You actually find out that we're very relatable. We very loving people. We're not scary as we're made out to be on the news. So please don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just get out there and start talking to the people. And we can reverse it. It may take time, but that's where we got to start. So
We're
that's
Americans. We are Americans. So we are exactly what the rest of America is, which is what I told the gubernatorial candidates. I think almost all of them, except for one. This idea that Black people are somehow like, I got a text. We're trying to understand the Black community. I mean, what is there to understand? My family been here since 1791. What is America? We know this. This is the Constitution. I don't know, it's all blurred up, but we know the Constitution. We know this stuff. We know America. And of all the people, we have experienced the very best that America has had to offer and the very worst that America has had to offer. So this idea that it's like strange to talk to Black people, why? We're Americans. If you could talk to people who just came off a plane or a boat, then surely you could talk to us. We've been here.
All right, amen. I think much has been said. Again, we appreciate all the comments that have came through. Everybody's on it. I believe most are in agreement on what needs to be done. Um, we got to get out here, you guys. As we've said, Sister Angela just said it too. We got to reach the people, right? Um, Chicago is a city of resilience. I've been saying, and I will continue to say it. It is a city that's full of hope, again, full of resilient people. Um, and in the state of Illinois, Chicago is the power structure, if you will. And as we have our hashtag as Chicago wins, we mean that wholeheartedly. We're not trying to be catchy. For real, when the trajectory of the city of Chicago changed spiritually, the state will change, the country will change. When Chicago wins, Illinois wins, America wins. So we have to stay focused on that. We have to be able to pull our resources, our ideas, our ingenuity together, our witty ideas together, and begin to reach people. That's what this is about. This is a people's fight, right? We have to be able to reach the people that need to be reached. Again, there's over 2 million people that live in this city. When you look at the voting, no city compares in terms of the population. And when you look at the collar counties, we have to put a lot of our energy and focus into Cook County. We just have to do that, right? And so the only way to do that again for the 100th time, not to be redundant, we have to get out here in these streets and talk to these people. And as Sister Angela said in Devon, we have always been of the mind to circumvent the elected officials, if you will, and to circumvent churches, right? My husband of ordained ministers, listen, we got to go to the people. Jesus ain't go get permission from religious leaders to go to the people. He didn't go get permission from the government to go to the people. He just went to the people. He chose his 12 disciples without anybody's permission, okay? So he went straight to the people, right? So we have to go to the people. We can't be concerned about all these hierarchies and these structures that be, because they're all going to come tumbling down. Again, as Sister Angela said, and we've all said, we got to get the power back to the people.
And you said something that I don't want people to miss, because oftentimes when they talk about outreach in Chicago, they go to a church. And you just said Jesus did not go to the religious leaders to reach the people. Literally,
Yes.
the church, the temple heads, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they wanted to kill him. So he couldn't go to them. What do you think is happening here? Stop.
I
Y'all
mean,
better
do what
stop.
you will, but
Yeah, yeah, but
it doesn't work anymore. It
yeah,
used to work. It's not
yeah.
working, right? So when we see that things are not working, we want change. I mean, we have to change. It doesn't work like that because a lot of our religious leaders, church leaders, they're bought into the same machine, right? So it's not working. We need to bring for real these biblical conservative values to the people. And again, when you talk to Black people, since it's always about Black people, right? When you talk to us, I cannot recall not one person I talked to that did not agree with what I'm saying. We've talked to hundreds. None. I'm talking from
Thousands.
the gangbanger to the whatever. They all agree. I don't know not one community, one street in my husband's barbershop. I don't know none that don't agree with this. They all agree with it. And they're not out there acting crazy when we're talking to them. Listen, when we be posting, we had an amazing time. I'm not just saying that. We be having a blast out there, right? We are some loving people. We're soul people. We love talking. Clearly, I talk a lot. We love talking, right? So seriously, we have an amazing time talking to our people and talking about things that matter. One thing that I have noticed in talking to people, they don't know what to do about a lot of this stuff. That's more the problem than anything. There is some hopelessness there. There is some like, and I think somebody put like, man, we tired of fighting. It's just like, we just like this, like, what the heck, you know? But that don't mean we don't believe it. That don't mean we don't receive it, right? So we have to ignite the hope, right? And so when we were out there, God blessed us. He gave us the grace to ignite some fire, some hope. So many people say, man, I'll vote for you. This, and that. Just igniting that little spark of hope. That's what they need. And when you ignite just a spark, y'all know how it works. We set the whole thing ablaze. That's what that's what we want to do. We want to set the whole thing ablaze, right? So be encouraged. Help us, right? Help the people, right? And so my thing is, as many know, is education. We can talk about all these other things, but if we don't save our children, if we don't save this generation for the next, none of this stuff is going to matter. None of this is going to be worth anything if we don't rescue our children. We cannot. Hear me. Many know, millions know. We cannot afford our children to be destroyed under no circumstances. We need to be fighting back, pushing back with everything within us to save this generation of children. I'm going to close with this. Jesus said this, believe it if you will, believe it if you don't. When you suffer little children to sin, it's best for you to have a millstone hung about your neck and to be cast into the sea than to offend little children. So you want to kill them in the womb. You want to sexualize and pervert them when they get out. You want to do all these things. You want to change their gender. You want to mutate their bodies. You want to give them puberty blocks. You want to give them hormones. You want to do all this wicked, wicked, wicked destruction to other people's children. I'm going to get off of here because I get very passionate about the education. You can't stand and let these people destroy your children, your neighbor's children. Life is valuable. There is no amount of dollar you can put on the value of a person's life, on the soul. And so with these things that are happening, they're not even giving these children a chance. They're not even having a chance to live or to even make the freaking mistake on their own. We're making it for them. We're not we. They're making it for them. They don't have a chance to live and decide for themselves anything. We're deciding they're this and they're that. We're deciding they're boys if they're not and they're girls if they're not because they think there's something else. They are cultivating. Scratch it, ain't no we. They're cultivating things that are woefully unacceptable and wicked. And we can't sit by and let them destroy these people's kids like this. Children should not be learning the things that they're learning. They should be going into the schools. If you're going to send them there, they should be getting a quality education. They should be coming out with reading skills, math skills, arithmetic skills, so that they can prosper in this life. Woe unto you that causes these children to sin. Woe unto you. So parents, I beseech you in the name of the Lord, y'all better wake up. You better fight for your kids. Nobody else loved them more than you. And in closing with that, the NEA, they said that educators, this is trending right now. Bessie Duvall shared this. I don't know who else shared it, but I seen it from her tweet. Educators love their students and know better than anyone what they need to learn and to thrive. I beg to differ, NEA. No, you don't. No educators don't. No teachers don't. I teach. I have students in my basement right now. No, I do not know what's best for them. I do not know them better than their parents. I do not love them more than their parents. I'm going to do my best for them. I'm going to give them everything that I got, and I love these babies. But their parents love them more. There's no comparison. There's no comparison to them. And they're not your kids, right? These kids in the basement, they're not my kids. But when they're here, I'm going to love them. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to teach them. I'm going to educate them. I'm going to make sure they're safe. Because I know that's what their parents want for them. And I'm not going to do them any harm. So you guys be encouraged and begin to focus on the family and these children. Right? We need a massive campaign to get more literature out. In terms of what's happening, we need to make sure that every household have an opt-out form. We need to make sure every household know what these national sex education standards are. We need to inform our community. Let's close out because we'll go on about this with these babies, right? So
let me give you before we go. It's kind of a Debbie Down. We about to close out, but just kind of a Debbie Downer moment. I went back and re-looked at the information from the Chicago Board of Elections. There are zero, I guess now they're counting mail-in ballots, whatever. There are zero wards that we won. We didn't win any wards. We lost all 50.
Wow.
So that's okay though, because this is a learning experience. We know. I hope that we're all seeing where to pivot going forward. I hope that we see that we have to. These are not political fights. This is a fight for the fabric of our society, right? So we have to stop looking at the Democrats did this and the Republicans did. We're not Democrats in Chicago. We're just people who live in Chicago, right? We're not Republicans who live in Chicago. We're just people who live in Chicago. So we have to talk to our neighbors about what policies are best based on how they live their lives. Vote your values, but it has to be your values and your faith first.
Yes.
So I guess that's the best advice that I could ever give, is that talk to people about how they live their life. That's just it.
Yes. So we're going to close out. Again, we thank you all for taking out time in your day, your lunch hour, if you will, to be encouraged, right? To listen to our side, our perspective of things. Know this comes from the heart. We sincerely love the people here in Illinois, the people in Chicago, all over. And we really want our families restored. We want Chicago restored as best as we can. Within our sphere of influence, we're going to do the best we can with the tools and resources that God has given us. We're going to do the best we can, right? We don't have to wait on anybody. We're just going to go and do what needs to be done. And again, I need everybody to really fight for these kids, right? Everybody needs to go on the front line to save kids, because that's what God called. That's the Abrahamic covenant. In the all nations and all families of the earth should be blessed. And so we want to really focus on the family, right? The family must be stabilized. We have to protect the family. And therefore, all these egregious policies, we need to be able to block them. We need to be able to inform people of what is happening so that they can better prepare themselves as well. So be encouraged, Illinois. It is well. This was a learning curve, right? We just take this. This is to build us up. This is not to tear us down. And we fight even harder. We become even louder, right? From the bottom up. And we begin to more so love our neighbor as ourselves. So let's get out here and let's make some change. So you guys be encouraged today. And I like this Talk About It Tuesday. Devin hyped me up to this. Devin always knows what's going on. He always knows the catchy stuff that's going on. So hopefully by the grace of God, we can jump back on and do another Talk About It Tuesday. Because there's a lot of things that always needs to be talked about. There's a lot going on in our world, in our society today. So again, you guys be encouraged, and you'll see us in the community. Feel free to join us.